at any minute now, which is so exciting. I feel like it's like my one chance to like be on TV, you know?
We're all famous for more than 15 minutes. Yay.
Yeah, I'm like, here it is. We're gonna be on YouTube for an hour. We'll be famous. We'll be internet famous for a minute. It'll be so good. Yeah. All right. Welcome everybody to tonight's. It's a nighttime eat and greet, but welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope that in this next hour we give you something that was absolutely worth the time you took to show up and share some space with us. And I'm so excited because we're going to talk about sun sign astrology, the sun tonight. Like, oh, we can get so busy talking about Chiron and the vertex and the midheaven. And it's like, well, what about that big ass sun? Like that thing is important. That thing is the biggest thing of light we've got in the sky. Not to mention, when planets go out of bounds, we're not worried about them going out of the bounds of Saturn. We're worried about them going out of bounds of the sun because it's the energy that we have. So I'm so excited to have the sun lady herself here. Miss Vanessa Montgomery, thank you so much for coming.
Hey, Stormy, thank you so much for having me. I love doing things with you. You are so much fun. And thank you also for sharing your platform and everyone who's come to listen live or later.
Yeah, oh my gosh, and the comment section is lining up now and I love it because we have some people who are just solid eat and greeters. Like they are ride or die. So thank you guys, and thank you too. No matter when you're listening, thank you for showing up. This is going to be a fun, really good talk, and it's one that everybody, you can just grab your chart, look at that sun and see what's going on. So I think it's good for all levels tonight as well. And I would like to point out you wrote a book about the sun.
I did. Let's get straight into it. It's actually my second book. The first being Star Power, a simple guide to astrology for the modern mystic, which of course has all the planets in it, including the sun, but that's got, all levels, the planets, the signs, the houses, the aspects, plus a few bonuses. And then I went into the prequel, which really is, let's start with the sun, the cosmic eye of the universe. So we get to deep dive into people's signs, whether you are more intermediate astrology. For those people, it goes through planets in a sign, actually. You can read it like that. Or for people, which there's so many that are they're not going to ever go past their sun sign, maybe their moon sign and rising, and they just want to know their sign. This is it.
This is your book. So I'll make sure, you guys, per usual, that there are links in the description box so you can check these books out, so that you can check out Vanessa as well. So you just get all kinds of context. So no matter where you're at in your level of study, we've got some goodies for you for sure.
Oh, also, this is today, Friday the 13th, where I am, is the official publishing date. Even though it's already hit the shelves, today's the day. So here we go. We didn't even plan that, did we?
No, but how fantastic is this, you guys? Depending on where you are in the world, Vanessa's able to give us a sneak peek into the future, like what's happening on Friday, because I'm still on Thursday. So we were laughing about that before. I'm like, tell me what's coming on Friday. So I just already know what I'm getting into.
I know. Well, it's raining.
Okay. Well, we'll stay indoors then. Okay. So before we talk about the sun, I would love to know, and I ask everybody, how did you get into astrology? What's your pathway in here?
Well, my pathway in wasn't sun signs and horoscopes, actually. It was as soon as I found out there was so much more. And then I was hooked and I've never looked back. So a friend was studying properly at the school that I ended up studying at. And, every week she'd come and tell me what they'd learned. And she was talking all this, other language. And as 5 planets in Sagittarius person, I'm all into the languages. But I didn't ever learn another language, Stormy, that has 1,000 languages. And and I was really interested in this language, a symbolic language of, a map to our psyche as well as forecasting, let's face it. It's so amazing. So, I can follow along pretty well. And at the point where I didn't know what she was saying in this other language, I was like, right, I need to learn this. So I went and studied it, and I just have been so hooked ever since. And it just kept going and going. I started a blog, and it led to getting the book commissions, and here we are.
Wow. And so what's What's new in your development now? You've done the blog, do you see clients?
I see clients, yeah, and it's been a long burn. So I'd say the year that it opened up to me, the astrology, was 1995, and then really getting late into the 90s, early millennial, and it just went. So I was looking at everyone's chart that I knew, that I met in the street, everywhere. I look up everyone famous. I see a movie, I check it, I read all the books, and I did my study, which made all the difference. You know, it's a system, so you have to learn it systematically. It helps.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then I just started eventually charging, and I studied transpersonal counseling because I thought, this is a psychological map. I'm going in deep and digging up all these things. Then what? Like, you don't want to just put people's stuff on the table and go, there it is. Okay, bye.
You're like, good luck with that.
Good luck with that. Back away slowly. Yeah. So if you're going to open someone up, I think you need to take some sort of responsibility with that. So I studied the transpersonal counseling and learned a lot of different techniques, and yeah, it's just developed. And then of course, after the first book, things just went, you know, a bit more stratospheric. And then I got the gig for writing sun sign horoscopes actually at Glamour Magazine US. So that's been over a year now, and they've just been real door openers. And it's been amazing to see astrology become so like trendy and fashionable, and like such a great interest. There's such a huge appetite for it, and I've done all this preparation for so long, like over 20 years, and here we are. And it's, you know, I'm so excited now. There's a community developing, and, you know, I get to meet people like you, Stormy, and I love that, because I felt like quite, you know, just doing my own little thing here. And oh, wow, this is all, it's like blossoming like a beautiful astro garden. So it's very exciting to me.
Oh, that's so, I love that. A beautiful astro garden. That is definitely what we've got going here. So I'm glad that we're getting to meet and be a part of that, because it is neat to see what is happening in astrology as well as in the world right now, but where astrology fits into that. And I think when I look back, you know, throughout history, when we've had these big changes and we look to our nature or our metaphysical communities, they always play a role. You know, there's always this like handle of the metaphysical, because if nothing else, when we don't know anything else about what's going on around us, we can always trust nature. And I think that's the beauty of astrology and all the metaphysical arts, really. So we're the hot ticket item again.
I know, it's so exciting. It's so exciting. So of course, what goes up must come down, and we know from astrology it's about cycles. So, you know, the hot trend will cool off, and the people that are really into it will stay. But I think for us now, I feel for me, this is just a next level of development as well. So I'm really here for it.
Oh yeah, me too. It's so great. It's so neat. So I'm ready. Like, I've been all in all day, because I've had all day to like wait for the eat and greet, because we don't normally do them at night. So it's kind of refreshing to be in a little bit of a different vibe. I actually kind of enjoy it. But I'm ready to hear about the sun. I mean, I'm a Taurus sun, which I just think is the best thing ever. That's beautiful. That's me, right? But one of the things I was just talking about with a student earlier, though, is when we're looking at sun energy, is kind of understanding that in the development of the ego, which is necessary, we're trying to learn the development of the ego through that sign that the sun is in. You know, that there's a real motivation to understand that. And that's the full scale of that, the lower vibe of that particular placement and the high vibe. So you can kind of see where you're growing to. But either way, it kind of gets to be done with a pretty motivated energy with the sun over there. So I'm motivated to Taurus on this planet.
The Taurus this lifetime. Well, that's it, isn't it? That's it. It's you know, the key words for the sun, what are they? Self, identity, it's self-development, developing the self, you know, and the ego to a healthy phase. So yeah, you are here to shine in all those Taurus ways. I'm here to shine as a Sagittarius. I feel like I'm living my best life these days. So except for all the planes are grounded. That's not really my best life, but it's forcing the other side.
Not in your best life plan.
No. But yeah, the reason, well, this is all behind why I wrote a sun sign book, which I never thought I would do. But I realized bring it back to basics. And as you mentioned before, Stormy, as astrologers, we can just keep learning and go, intergalactic with this stuff, into these tiny, minute techniques upon techniques. And I feel like sometimes we really lose touch with what's actually happening. So bring it back to basics. Taurus rising here, and I think that's it. It's got to go through this ascendant filter, which is, how is this useful? Like, bring it back to the big headline. That's the sun and the moon, fodder for another book, and the ascendant. So yeah, I just think the sun is, we don't really talk about it because we think, like, once we go a bit more professional and into everything, we think, oh, sun sign horoscopes or sun signs, blah. But actually, like, look out the window into nature. Our seasons are all tied into the archetypes of the sun signs. They're not nothing. They are like a representation of how we can understand our seasonal experience, more in the Northern Hemisphere, but gives us archetypes. So much is based on that. And one of the reasons that I was motivated to write a sun sign book was, of course, if anyone's listened to other things I've talked about, is to get rid of that gender bias and start relaxing that and opening it up, because it seems to be mostly women into astrology. Most of my clients are women. And, I hear people say the sun is he and the king and a man in your life. No, it's not. It's your chart. It's your sun. We all have a sun, no matter where you were from. Like, it doesn't matter how rich or poor, who cares what gender or non-gender specific. Everyone has a sun. There's no gender to a thing. It's like saying my glasses are he or she. Like, it's an archetypal energy. So that was a huge bit of motivation. And then the sun is having that confidence to shine. So that's the other side of it. Confidence for you to shine, not like use your light to light up someone else, which is good mutually if it's equal. But, you've got to come forward. And I find a lot of women do have a little deficit in that confidence to shine just for them. The sun is ego based. It's so yang. It's about externalizing. The moon is maybe more about your feeling nature and receptivity. But this isn't about receptivity. It's about turning your light on and dialing it up as bright as it can go. And I think in this current climate, there's so many voices. So the higher you dial yourself up and just unleash, the more impact you're going to make. And I look at a lot of people whose voices are really getting listened to because they just open it up and go. Like, they put that mic on full tilt and we listen because it's authentic. So that's part of authenticity as well. So yes, that was the reasoning behind it. Which, of course, there's so many levels. You've got the sun signs, say horoscopes, and that's a certain technique. And then you've just got, like, how do you look at the sun in a birth chart? By sign, by house, and then by aspect. So, and we do that with every planet. But if you're just going to focus on the sun, that's so much information just there, as you know. And then we've got following the moon and the sun around the chart in terms of transits to learn about, if you're just a newbie or not, just to watch, what happens that day. I think it's great as astrologers or budding astrologers to keep a little bit of a journal so that you can go back and see if anything correlated with your transits. So the sun passing through, it's a degree a day, takes 1 year for the whole cycle. So what happened when that sun was around your sun? What happened when the transiting sun was on your ascendant or your Venus? Just take note of that. And it's a great way to learn because it moves fairly quickly, but it does tend to light up things and put a little spotlight on that moment. I heard someone's talk, which I thought was quite interesting, on their sun transit, and they had done that. And he said that when the sun was on his ascendant, he won a trophy, the light was on him for a minute. But it happened to be when that sun hit there. And very interesting.
Yeah, it's fabulous. And I always think it's interesting when we do come back to basics, because if we took almost everything else off the table, we can tell where the sun and the moon were, where you were born, right? like we have a baseline for interacting with you right there, which is so powerful. And we just had Sonal was over here and she was talking about some principles of Vedic astrology. And she was saying how even in Vedic, the entire map is just based on the sun and the moon, right? Everything else just falls in between. So it's like, yes, back to basics. Let's learn
Back
the
to
depth
basics.
of what these have. And then you can fill in the blanks on the rest of it.
Yeah, back to basics. And so I started my book off with that. I'd done this big talk and then I realized I hadn't gone, back to the main thing. So look out the window, go outside. The sun is huge. And I was Googling all about the sun. And it's so interesting to get you really in touch with that energy and the energy within. I highly recommend it. So yeah, just ideas about how massive that thing is, the energy and output that it has. It's about output, like a light. It gives life to things. Without the sun, we're gone. So that fire and the sun is attention. Without attention, we're gone. They've done those experiments on plants. You've got a little plant that you give attention to, loving attention. You give a little plant negative attention, and then you give a little plant nothing. And they also did it with those grains of rice or whatever it was in water. And the one with no attention, fared the worst. Even the one with negative attention, so like children, if they don't get good attention, they'll go for the bad attention, because you need that. Sure. Like you need to express and capture that. So there's the sun again. We need attention. How do you need it? Like what works for you in what area of life? So that's, the house and the style. And then you've got the aspects, which are what's your ability to shine? How do you need to like fit yourself, and what are all these things you need to integrate and incorporate to be able to shine? If you've got a Jupiter on your sun, probably no problem at all.
You're good.
You're good in Leo. If you've got Saturn square your sun, that's a challenge. But it's also, as always, a gift. So, yeah. And I guess, anyone that does readings, like you, Stormy, you would see so many different variables on this, with all the planets, but particularly the sun. And I have to say, something I've noticed that makes it just illustrates it so clearly is if someone has a sun in Leo, which of course is connected with the sun, ruled by the sun, and they have that Saturn conjunction or a square, really makes such a big difference to their ability to shine. It definitely dials it down, and it's definitely a struggle to master through life to do that, because Leo, sure, you just notice it if they're dialed down. So yeah, the conjunction's easier. I think the square is kind of the hardest from what I've seen.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's so funny because I think about something I've been studying and looking a lot more into is when planets are unaspected in general. And I will tell you, an unaspected sun touches everything in that chart, because essentially, right, the unaspected sun is like the planet gone wild. It's like, what? I have all of this space to just be being me. And then it like amplifies the qualities of whatever sign it's in. And so if you're listening to this and I say an unaspected sun, it means it doesn't have one of the Ptolemaic aspects. So it doesn't have a conjunction, a square, an opposition, a trine, a sextile, any of that. So the little semi-sextiles are out. The quincunx is out. Okay, so look at your chart. See if you have an unaspected planet in general, but the unaspected sun is a real ride, because it just pours that sign energy or characteristics over everything in that chart. Have you had that experience yet? Or
I haven't seen it. That would be interesting, actually. I think if they're out of bounds, planets out of bounds in terms of the sun. So that was a really good point to bring up. But here's the sun kind of like out of bounds in a way, isn't it? Not that it goes out of bounds, but yeah, we learned the word for that was like a rogue planet.
Yeah, that's kind of it, because that's what happens. An unaspected planet is not being tempered in any way. So he's like, or she, or it is just like, I'm just living my best life any way I want to.
Maybe we could study those people to see how an unfettered sun sign can radiate, you know, like maybe I've got this little light, well, a couple lights here, and they've got the barn doors on them. I guess it's just the light without those barn doors.
Yeah, it is. Oh my gosh. And there is one of them that I was studying, not to like bring politics up, but one of them that I was studying was actually Hillary Clinton's chart. And it was so interesting to follow back in her history and see her unaspected sun. And then, you know, you have to bring in the whole chart with it. But like you could literally see that place where it was almost like, yes, you are brilliant, and yes, you will really succeed, but that particular seat of fame is not yours. It's so interesting. So if anybody pulls that on astro.com, take a look at that chart. You'll see what I'm talking about, but it's absolutely fabulous. And maybe we'll show it sometime. It's just so cool to look at the astrology, not necessarily the person, right?
Yeah, a bit of both. Like they represent it, how they're representing it. Can you divorce that from all the other stuff in their chart? I love studying people's charts, especially famous people, because we can see it, you know, and so when you talk about it, people can understand. I think the other thing about just studying the sun type, like people that radiate, is people with the sun rising or Leo rising. Sure. Is a good way to see it. And I find it's when people have a really different chart to that, like if they say have Leo rising, it's so interesting, because it's like they'll, you know, the ascendant is how people engage with initial experiences. So say someone going to a party with the Leo rising, more so with the sun as well, they just bust through those doors. You know, someone with a Saturn, like I have Saturn, so I'm just like creep through, or I think I'm busting through, but actually I'm like, got to head over to the food table and satisfy the Taurus rising, and then I can do the meeting. But the sun, I remember seeing someone with a very shy chart and a very internalizing sort of yin chart, but she had this Leo rising, and when she showed up at parties, she went straight into the middle of the room and would bust out moves, and then the rest of her chart would kick in and she'd just freak out, and then she'd just go over to the side quietly.
That's so interesting.
All the bits having their moment. That was fascinating, you know. So great doing astrology, because you're always observing, you're always correlating, never bored.
Yeah. So do you feel like it's fair to say then, even though we're talking about the sun and how we acknowledge that we also do just need to acknowledge any of the Leo placements in our chart? Like where is that lighting up in your chart? I'm a 12th house Leo, which I'm like, I feel like it's a whole lie, but that's fine. I'm like, how is that possible?
Yeah. Well, since we're on the sun, why not bring it through to Leo? Absolutely. I think that, and that's the nodes. Is there a moon in Leo as well? Do you have planets in Leo? Like Saturn, a bit more of a like, this is my mission in life to master my light.
Right. Right.
But
so you could see that you maybe have your own little kind of bust out energy wherever that Leo house is located for you.
Yeah. Where do you need to be? All the walls painted yellow. You need to be shining. I think mine's on my 4th, so also water house. But it's a good example because I have bought a house. It is not bright yellow, like a Tuscan yellow. I've literally painted it like that. It's up on a hill. So, you know, you arrive and it's quite a grand statement because of what I've done with it. And I do like to rule the roost. There is creative stuff everywhere. That I've made. It's very Leo. My home.
It's very Leo. Okay, we have a couple questions. Are you cool with some questions?
Yeah, go.
Okay, cool. So the first one says, Vanessa, do you focus on the influence of a day or a night chart?
No, because I practice modern astrology, a humanistic astrology, psychological astrology, and that's fully traditional. So no, I don't, but I'm really interested in learning that. So I've listened to talks on it and I kind of have it in the back of my mind. The closest I would get to that is I do look at the quadrants and hemispheres. So if there's a lot of planets in this down under the chart, it's kind of like being a night chart. I know it's a different thing, but it's more internalized. Yeah. And then if the planets are above the horizon, this is a person that expresses and is not self-referencing. They need to put it out and get the feedback. So that's the way that I do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any suggestions of resources for transpersonal consulting skills?
Yes. Well, let me think. Google. Look, do a proper course. I always think if you can learn in person, it's just so much better, or it needs to be interactive, because there's a lot of different interactive skills that you need to learn and practice as you go, rather than just have the concept. So, I learned out of school, it's closed down actually since, but I got so much confidence because every little thing we learned, we would practice. We had to go and practice on people outside of there. So we came out just fully ready to go. So it combines so well with the astrology as well. And I guess there's techniques that you can take out of it, and you can learn all those different techniques. But I'll do a proper course, even a year. There's probably books, but because I learned in the course, I don't know like of one single book. There's some leading lights, like Stan Groff, and actually Richard Tarnas, I think he was mentioned, who, also does astrology. So they're all leading lights of it. James Hillman, he's really interesting blend of things. I'd Google. And if it's really worth, I guess it's worth doing. It's like what I understand about evolutionary astrology as well. It's just sort of the next level from psychology. It's like it takes into account you have spirit, reincarnation. There's more. We're not just mechanistic. So very interesting.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. And I think we kind of talked about it a little, but I'm going to just ask anyways to make sure. So the question is, do we have any thoughts or ideas on the relationship between the rising sign and the sun? So the question itself too is it a balancing aspect that can help bring more balance to your chart? Is, I think, the question.
Can be. I mean, charts are so unique. One way of reading one person's chart is a bit different to someone else's. So do you have an actual aspect between your ascendant and your sun? Mm-hmm. There's that angle. And then there's the angle of, what are the needs of your sun sign? They've got to get through, and this is going a bit traditional astrology in a way, they've got to get through the door of the ascendant. So they've got to honor the ascendant when they arrive to express. So I see that clearly as well when the sun's so different to the rising. Same with the Mars, everything needs to kind of find this way. So I'll use myself as an example, that all the Sagittarius sun, how's that going to operate through a Taurus rising? Well, what do they have in common? Love nature. Love natural medicine and all of those things. But it's all this, like if I had, say, a Gemini rising or Aquarius, I'd be so off the planet. I wouldn't have a book saying like a simple guide, and it would not be very accessible at all. But it's Taurus rising, so all that knowledge and seeking of knowledge, or the knowledge I've found, the Sag. But then there's like the 8th house involved. It's esoteric. I've got Mercury in the 8th. Has to get through and apply it. Like I do always find the ascendant is definitely a bit of an anchor for sure. And that traditional way of saying, sitting there, well, they'll sit the sun on the ascendant and say, how does the light hit the houses? I'll say, how does your light get out that door? What is that door? So it's the temple, like how do you get out that temple? You must honor it, and you will. Like I know a lot of Taurus risings, and we all have that in common, even though the rest of our charts are so different. There's this thing, we like to drink a lot of tea and like add things up on our calculator.
Oh, funny. It's the truth. Okay, so Stella said, Vanessa, can you give a truly one-word description for each sun sign, like the most minimalist approach to catching the essence of the sign?
Oh my gosh.
That is a good
asking a Sagittarius. One word. Virgo would be great at this. So Aries, pioneer. Or if you're going to say one word, I mean, I guess you go down to the statements, I am, through the signs, I am. For Aries, Taurus, I have mine.
Mine.
And I've done that in Cosmic Power. I've given the traditional statement, and then I've given my interpretation, which is, I think Taurus was, you're mine. And also something like, show me the money.
Both of which I think are completely accurate
Yes.
statements for sure.
Gemini. Okay. Yeah. So do you want me to go through them all? Or
yeah, let's just do it. We'll do it. We'll bust them out.
Okay. And you give me yours too. So Gemini is like, I think.
I talk
a lot, in brackets, a lot to everything.
Even
to inanimate objects. Look, we've passed one word. Cancer, I feel.
Yeah, that's definitely I feel.
Yeah, I feel.
I nurture. I like that one for Cancer as well. I nurture.
Definitely. Yeah. You're all my babies.
All of you. I have a North Node in Cancer. I'm like, I am learning that you're all my babies.
We're all your babies. We get under your wings.
Yes. Okay, Leo,
I shine, I express.
Yeah, like I'm here. Or, with Leo too, I really just like the word joy.
Yeah, so joyful. Yes.
Yeah.
I like the unofficial statements of things like, I've arrived. How would they make that statement?
Yes. What does that look like? All the Leos down there are like, yeah, I know. That's what it is.
What have we got next? Virgo, I analyze.
Yeah. Yeah. I analyze, I organize, I see patterns.
Yep.
This is like, I help. I help. Yeah. I have a Mercury in Gemini. I suck at this game. You're going to get more than one word.
Me too. What's next? We've got lovely Libra. I balance. I relate.
Yeah, I relate.
Yeah. Scorpio. I transform.
I transform. I evolve. Something like that. I'm watching you.
I'm watching you.
Yeah, I observe at high levels.
Absolutely. Sagittarius. I seek.
Yeah. Truth. I just think of truth. Truth.
I seek the ultimate truth is my in brackets for that one. Seeking the Holy Grail, and then realizing it's been within all along.
It was so funny. My oldest daughter is a Sagittarius, and she's Sag with just a ton of water. So she's super in the truth of her feelings, right? Most of the time. And I saw this meme and it was so cute. It was like the world, just the earth, right? And they were like, the world before Sagittarius shares their full opinion, and they show a picture of the earth, and then they show the same picture and they're like, in the world after Sagittarius shares their complete opinion. I was like, that is so funny, because she is like, no, Mom, I need to tell you the whole of everything. And it always comes back to the exact first thing that she told me anyway. Every time. I love her though.
Gonna take you on the journey, all the words, so many words. Yeah, it's the adventure and the fun of the journey.
Okay, Capricorn, I achieve.
And at this point it pays to mention that journey through the signs as well, like the sun's journey of development, if you look at that as a whole growth cycle, which we haven't done in this chat. But yeah, like you were the apprentice to the sign that comes after you, and you're the mentor of the sign that's before you. So yeah, from Scorpio, they dig down into everything, transform. So Sagittarius can just go, pack light and just go find everything. And then Capricorn comes along. Right, what are we going to do with this? Earth wants to do something practical. How are we going to structure all that knowledge that you've gained? It's so random and all over the place. And then what are we going to do with it? So yeah, Capricorn, I actually think of the word empire with Capricorn, but I structure, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, Aquarius,
yes. And then you feed it out to the people. I know.
I just feel like I innovate.
Definitely I innovate, and I will shock you. Be prepared. Or expect the unexpected. That's very Uranus as well, but yeah, also Aquarians.
Yeah, or bet you didn't think of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love when an Aquarian blows into my life because I can feel Aquarian energy like nobody's business. And it's always like something really interesting comes from our interaction in the way that I just hadn't considered it from that perspective. So
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, creative third option. There's not just two options here. So I love that. And I don't even think half the time they mean to do that. That's just when you carry the vibration of certain signs, you have an innate ability to kind of drop some knowledge somewhere, even if it doesn't feel like that to you.
Absolutely. And they will go anywhere and everywhere with the conversation topics. We're going to talk about aliens now. Okay.
That's brilliant. Okay, Pisces.
Pisces. Certainly there's an I feel with that again as well. And I'd say I unify.
Yeah, or what's the word? I just feel like womb is the word. Like I assimilate. I take just all of that and go, I promise it was crazy, but it does all make sense. And this is how it all fits together.
Yeah. Yeah. And
it's all
and
good.
No boundaries.
No boundaries. No boundaries. That's why
boundaries.
God help us if like a Pisces and a Sag, like if y'all get together, we're real go on a trip. We're really going on a trip.
Yes, I've got a little bit of that conversation going on actually. Yes, Pisces will go there. But it's interesting. They unify again everything from, Aquarius has gotten out there and it's got all the people together. And then the Pisces brings their heart and soul. And, here we're going to find where we all intersect.
Right.
Get along really well.
This makes it all make sense. Yeah, that's brilliant. All right. What else about the sun? Anything? I feel like there's just so many directions
There's so many
to go with it.
Well, there's the sun sign horoscopes is always something worth mentioning. It's, I think they're an interesting little gateway into things, and some people love them. It's been an interesting journey doing them since I was, you get into astrology and it's a completely different sort of thing. So just to explain the technique to people, it's so super easy. You just put the sun on basically a full sign house for each sign. So I'll go through and I'll just draw up the chart for each week. And, if I'm doing Taurus rising, you turn the chart to Taurus what's happening with the planets. And I'll usually base it on anything big that's happening. So what's the one big headline this week? Oh, the sun's changing sign. So I just wrote next week's yesterday. The sun's changing sign to Sagittarius, and Mars is pretty much going direct. Is it today or tomorrow? It's stationed.
Yeah, it's stationed.
So if I've got a little bit of extra room, I'll mention that. So what house is that in? So we use the houses. I don't even really have space to get to the aspects, but what area of life for Taurus is that sun going into Sagittarius? Where does that rule? So what's that? The 8th house. So for next week's horoscope, it's all about the 8th house for the next month and lighting that up. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so where do you fall? Because, I do monthlies and weeklies as well.
Yeah.
And so what we cast is called a solar chart. But I get people who ask me all the time, should I be listening for my sun, my moon, and my rising? I have two thoughts on that. My first one is
good convo.
I cast a solar chart because I believe in sun sign astrology. I believe that no matter which house your sun is at, it's like a guitar string. If you strum the key of Taurus, everything Taurus in your chart is going to feel some emphasis of that vibration. So even if it doesn't align exactly with what I'm saying in that video, I believe in sun sign astrology. Now, also, practically speaking, if you look at it, it's more likely to align with your rising sign. And even that is really questionable if you're depending on the housing system that you're using. So where do you fall?
Well, now that there are all these different housing systems, before it was a bit more straightforward because most people were not using traditional astrology because the books hadn't been translated yet, but now they are. So I just stick to Placidus because that's what I know really well. In my horoscopes, I asked for Glamour to write it as in Taurus or Taurus rising, so that you can read it for both. And as an experiment and part of my ongoing observation, I've asked friends that read it, read for your moon as well, and just give me feedback on that. What does it feel? What does it resonate most with? Your rising, your sun sign, or your moon sign? And because, of course, you're right. Even if you do it for the housing placements, which is basically it's a rising sign, it's more on your rising sign, but then depending on where the cusp is, if you're not using whole sign houses. So I guess it's a bit experimental. So if I wrote them for myself on my own blog, I probably wouldn't do it that way. I would say this is a rising sign horoscope, but then check your degree. I've got like Taurus rising, but it's 17 degrees. So it's sort of like halfway between. So I'll often, if I look at other people's interpretations, I'll look at Gemini rising because that's going to land it in the sun or whatever the aspect is that's happening in that house. So it's more relevant to me. And I find, again, you're bringing it back to the actual, what's actually happening, or as close to it. It's still a concept that we've constructed. but then people have said that works, and as I've been writing the horoscopes using this technique, I think about people of those signs. I'm like, wow, this actually does work for what's happening in their life. I'm just going to go with it. Don't ask me how, but
that's been my experience, and especially over the last 7 years as I watch even what I'm creating, I can tell you that just from a traditional standpoint of looking at Taurus, it was a huge ninth house expansion year for me, with all of those crystallizing planets up there in Capricorn, right? It was beautiful. But also, when I break it down, and that was looking at my sun sign, even though I'm a ninth house sun. But then when I look at my chart, because you got to go back to your chart,
always, yes.
I tell you, I watched for the huge amount of development with my children because I had a fifth house activation, and both were absolutely correct. But when I listened to Virgo rising, I was like, what is this? What trash is this? None of this is happening in my life. So you really have to go in and listen and find, because I think too, at different times in my life, I've had a different resonance with my moon to be able to go listen to a moon sign horoscope, or something like that. So you have to go listen. That's the answer, I think, is because the question is what's most accurate. Well, you have to find your sweet spot. And really what's most accurate is for you to grab your chart and see where the placements are on your chart. That is the most accurate.
Bespoke astrology.
There you go.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, I want to just get this question in here. Do you guys prefer tropical over sidereal astrology, and why?
100%.
Yeah,
I do. I don't know the other way. So I've got Demetra George's book actually to learn a bit more. The conferences over the years, I've gone and listened to traditional astrology talks, but I haven't learned it properly to put it all together. So also that's how I've learned. So I think it's like choose a path. Once when I was in India, some little yogi dude said, even with your yoga practice, and I think it's the same with astrology or anything, just choose one thing and do it. Like just do that and get deep at it and get good at it. And if you like having a little taste of all these things, which is like Sag style, you'll never get anywhere. So, and I know as a Sagittarius, I can be random, and that master of none, jack of all trades could be very real. So I had consciously taken that and thought, I'm going to focus on astrology. I can explore all these other things, but I'm going to get really good at this. At that time, this was just the style. There was no other option on the table, really. So that's why I do it and prefer it. And what about you, Stormy?
Yeah, I'm a tropical fan as well. And my experience, though limited, there was an exploration between tropical and sidereal against my chart and with some of my clients who allowed me to kind of follow them for a year. And the challenge that I ran into with all of them with sidereal, which I will admit could just be my challenge, is that timing was off in their life for when we were looking at predictive things, or we were looking at solar arcs or things like that were bringing kind of events in. So with sidereal, and again, it could be my misunderstanding of it because I haven't spent 20 years doing sidereal, but I could probably listen to Athen Chimenti who does sidereal and he's going to like blow my mind with timing. But for me, it was from experience that I said, this seems to be where I resonate at. And you're
Yeah.
right. At some point, you got to pick a path and like get on it.
Yeah. Get good at it. Yeah. And then you can go from there. And I think the systems have been developed to use in their own special ways. So there's a guy here on the Gold Coast that he is quite proficient in both. And the way he talks about it, he said he uses like tropical Western style astrology in the way that it was developed to be used. And he'll use what he's learned for sidereal and Vedic astrology in the way that's meant to be used. These systems are their thing. So he'll use techniques in this system for what they're meant for. And he said they're very complementary, but they're not the same system. And you don't mix them up because then the whole thing falls apart, like it is a system. So that was really interesting insight. And that's what I'll pass on as well.
Yeah. And I think a lot, I've mirrored a lot of my astrology practice and learning after medicine because I wanted to be a doctor for a really long time. And I'm like, you know what? Every surgeon is not every kind of surgeon, but everybody knows how to do a little general surgery, right? But
Yes.
if you work on feet, honey, please do feet. If you do uterus, like don't be the foot doctor working on my uterus. Like I still respect your hustle, but like don't stick to what you know. You know what I mean? And there's plenty of space for all of us. And in fact, I think because we don't all do one thing, it leaves a lot of space for future generations of astrologers to continue to practice should they want to wherever they fit.
And that's a great point. And it makes me think of you can't be all things to all people. And again, it goes back to your chart as an astrologer. You're probably going to reflect the strength and focus of that chart. So I'll listen to that's why I love knowing other astrologers' charts. So I'll listen to someone whose chart I've got an idea of, and the way that they're speaking, I'm learning a lot more about those placements because of the way they're even doing their astrology. Yeah. So you can learn from someone that's doing differently rather than say you have to do it my way. Sit back and look at how they're doing it. It'll expand you because everyone has their own thing that they're bringing. It's just, choose it and do it. Like they say, it's like it's a framework at the end of the day, I think. And it's like using tarot or any other sort of oracle. And just choose a framework, it will get you going, and then you're bringing the rest out and you're combining all your different ways and skills and interests. So you can't expect someone else's way works for you, but you can definitely expand your understanding through them teaching you or even listening to them as just observing the whole thing. So yeah, it's an interesting one. And it's definitely it's something good to remember that there's just not one way. It's not like off the rack. It's just not. It's bespoke. In every astrologer has to remember, go for the sunshine, like shine your way. Just be proud of it. Don't try to get other people to, because I think there's a bit of crossfire at the moment with traditional and modern astrology. I've seen, a bit of, saying that's not right. It's like, well, it's just a different system. So I'm never going to say anything's not right about sidereal or traditional or Vedic because I don't know that system. I can say a few things maybe with modern astrology. If people are really mixing up keywords, I'll be like, well, no, that's not the case. But then there's the place where someone's bringing their own gifts and intuition as well. Yeah. It's not dry. It's not a dry thing. It's like incorporates both sides of your brain, which is why it's so great.
Yeah. And then what you do is you just start an awesome podcast and bring all the people to talk about the stuff you don't know about.
Yes.
Everybody gets a little snack.
That's it. You can snack on them all and you'll be developing and learning as long as you've got enough framework to build these things into. Otherwise, again, it's going to be that like sporadic random information, what where does it go? What does it do? Like a jigsaw that you've got no idea.
Absolutely. All right. Closing thoughts on the sun for our viewers and listeners.
So I think get to know your sun sign. Read my book. It'll get you so in touch with it, obviously. And Google the sun. Google the sun. Get in touch with that energy. Do the power pose to amplify, when you're wanting to shine. Open up that body language. Beat on your chest. Open up that, don't cross your body. Open, and the feeling is that sun radiating. Wear bright colors, get some sunshine, if you ever need that confidence. And I think, I know, it's like center in what is that sun sign and just own it. Like, don't try to be any other thing. What is your authenticity? Just freaking go with it. And it's always developing. It's always shining. That sun's always like having these like solar bursts. You never really stop growing. You never stop shining. You just continue on the journey with confidence and don't care what other people think, basically. And join lights up with other people, and the room's going to be even brighter.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you are a little bit further along and you are already studying your progressed sun and things like that, a really great practice that I found for people is to channel the sign that your progressed sun is in. Watch people, like Vanessa was saying, I'm a progressed sun in Gemini. So I get a little bit of a filter through the Gemini lens. And I spent a long time watching Gemini, because that is not something I innately know how to do. It's just a lens that has come over to help me do certain portions of my life. So channel it, channel the zodiac. I actually have a book called Channel the Zodiac, but channel and watch other people, because just because you are experiencing a sun energy doesn't mean that you innately know how to experience that energy or what to do with it. And that's okay. We're just,
because it's the journey, isn't it? It's your self-development. You're developing this. You don't need to have it, especially, for the younger kids, that there's a lot of pressure to know who they are and put that out on social media or whatever. The point is you never stop growing. And progress. We didn't even cover progressed. Yes, there's even a progressed sun. There's so many things.
I know. Like, I feel like we could have like another 2-hour talk just to get into that whole situation. But for tonight, my beautiful friends, thank you, Vanessa, for coming over and
thank
talking.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Thank you guys for showing up. I hope that we gave you something that was worth the time you took to show up, and that you go and you spend some time with your sun. Even though it's a big energy, it doesn't mean all of us are quite comfortable with it, or we're comfortable with it at different phases of our life. So spend some time with the sun. Check out Miss Vanessa's book. I'll make sure you have the links for that. And we'll be back in the morning with another eat and greet.
Yay!
Oh my gosh, it's going to be fun. So if you would like to eat and greet with us in the morning, it'll be at 9 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And we will have Julian Venables here, and we're going to talk about the different faces of Mars. So it's really nice. We're getting to re-meet some of these planets, and we have beautiful astrologers to come walk us through the reunion with those bad boys. So we will see you guys first thing in the morning. Well, it's like my first thing as far as being on camera in the morning. All right, you guys, we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.